I've been burned in the past about like pivoting in recruitment, not pivoting actually, because of the way like some agencies are set up that I've worked in. You've got your niche, and that's your niche, and there isn't room to
Yeah.
maneuver. And I don't know if you've ever been in that situation.
I don't know if I've ever been in that situation. I think because my career started in finance and accounting, that's always been sort of my go-to. Like that's always been my bread and butter. And going back to what I said before, in a good economy, everybody needs an accountant, and then in a bad economy, people need accountants. So there's sort of this consistency in the world of accounting and finance. But different businesses that I have run, yeah, there's been a need to maybe change our operating model, not to the point where we completely change sector, but change the services that we're offering or how we're offering it. Yeah, we had to do that during COVID. So yeah, there's times where you have to be agile enough to be able to do that, or it just gets harder and harder.
Yeah. Do you have like regular refreshes? Do you have like checkpoints? I know, like once a quarter, you look at how things are going, or is it just like an on the fly thing?
Oh, mate, I think, for me now, right, Forge Talent, we've been going since June. So, like, I'm into the detail every single day because it's my baby, right? And I'm working with Riz and Adam and Joe, like, into the detail every day. Like, I not to the point where it's KPIs, the dreaded word that everybody gets scared of. But I'm always reviewing stuff, like reviewing, my personal stuff, like what have I been doing today? Like, what's the market trend? Like, what's the analysis? And we do that as a group, like every week, where we're looking at different stuff to try and help us propel this business forward as quickly as possible. Historically, again, other businesses that I've been in, yeah, it's been weekly, monthly, quarterly, always looking at different trends. Again, because if you don't have that time to be able to reflect and analyze stuff, then you are just doing it on the fly. And in my experience, when you're doing it on the fly, things become really challenging really quickly.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think it's the whole thing of like continuous improvement as well, isn't it? Just constantly analyzing what you do, how you do it, and if you
Well,
don't,
mate, it
like,
comes down to
sorry.
I was just gonna say it comes down to marginal gains, right? You want to get that 1% better, like every single day, every single week, every month, every quarter. It's like, well, how do you do that? Like, you've got to look at data, you've got to look at trends, you've got to be analysing, because if you don't, you're just teeing yourself up to be average, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Totally agree. Well, before we get into the nitty gritty, because I've already got about 5 questions I want to ask you off that.
Yeah.
Could you just like give everyone who might not know who you are an overview of who you are, what you do, and just like a bit about your journey? Because I know you've got quite an interesting journey. So
Yeah, of course, mate. So look, I've been in the recruitment industry for 12 years. Started off with Robert Half, large corporate US listed business. Started as a trainee transactional recruiter, transactional finance recruiter, and over a 7-year period, went to associate director, running businesses in Edinburgh, Glasgow, and then moving into or relocating to Manchester to rebuild the Manchester business. After deciding that the corporate way of life had sort of taken its toll, for want of a better phrase, I decided to make a bit of a change and move to a smaller to medium-sized business in Manchester, with a plan to rebuild their Manchester business, then take the reins of their London business and help push that forward. So did that for sort of four and a bit years, and then this year decided that it was time to go into business with a group of like-minded people and launch Forge Talent. Not trying to reinvent the wheel. Recruitment is recruitment, but I'm very vocal about this topic. Everybody is very transactional in our industry, and we want to be a go-to agency where it's driven by relationships and partnerships first. So tagline, relationships, not transactions. So that's me in a bit of a nutshell, mate.
Yeah, awesome. So I know obviously we talked about this before the podcast, but you obviously you moved into a leadership role quite young, right? So could you chat a little bit about that and what you've learned, accelerating quite quickly into a leadership role at a young age, and any sort of mistakes or anything you would have changed through that journey?
Yeah, of course, mistakes. There's loads, right? I could probably write a book on it. Something I'll definitely not do in the future. But I was very fortunate that I was given an opportunity at Robert Half to move into a management role, really early on. And then opportunity just became the next opportunity, and there was a great leadership team that were always trying to take me out of my comfort zone and push me. And there was support, but it was definitely fight or flight. So in terms of some of the learnings, there's a plethora of them. I think again I've been quite vocal on the topic that billing managers in recruitment, it's the hardest job in the industry. You're presented with in most cases I've never managed before. I've been a decent biller or I've been a top performer. Can you just go and show people what to do? And you're in that place where you're now responsible for people. You're now responsible for taking them on a journey. Oh, but by the way, you've also still got a bill. And we still expect you to continue the level of billings that you have been doing whilst you're growing a team. So there's loads of challenges that present itself. It's very quickly, you've got to understand what motivates Max Learmonth or David Rolls might not motivate the rest of the people in the team. Because everybody's different, right? Everybody has different feelings, different motivators, different ambitions. So you've got to quickly work that out. Following on from that, you've got to wear different hats for different people. And you can't drive people in the same way. You can't just bash on about KPIs. Sorry, people, they do have their importance, parts of them. So you've just got to quickly get into the detail, going back to what we were speaking about a little bit earlier. But how can you drive people forward in the right way, but through understanding their motivations? But behind it all, you need two more things, in my opinion. You need to have patience, because the way you would do something might not be the way someone else does it, and you need to be given time. You need to be given time by the business to make those mistakes, to get things wrong. When I was relocated from Edinburgh to Manchester, those first couple of months, I was like, what on earth am I doing? I've left a successful desk, a successful team, and now I'm in a new city, new environment. This Scottish lad, can't tell by the accent now, it's completely gone. In a new environment, and I got so much wrong. I just reverted back to, well, if I love KPIs, I'm gonna push people. I'm just gonna push. That's not the way to be. So going back to it, David, you've got to understand people's motivations. You've got to manage every single person in a different way. You've got to be patient. You've got to be given time. You've got to take people on a journey. So you've got to have a vision behind it. Whether it's you're managing a small team, or you're managing your own business, you've got to be able to talk to people about the story and talk to people about the vision and journey that they're going to go on with you.
How did you sort of learn about all this then? Because obviously, there's so many different ways to learn to be a manager, and not everyone's should be a manager. I know there's a lot of recruitment and sales managers out there where, people who are being managed by them probably think, actually, this person probably shouldn't be managing people. But how did you sort of learn about them? Was it just trial and error, or did you have a mentor, or
No, look, I think it was a combination of things. The individual, Phil Sheridan, who gave me the opportunity to move from Edinburgh to Manchester, he was extremely supportive, and he was a big advocate of mine at the time, and was constantly giving me opportunities. The other chap that I was working really closely with was a chap called Ed O'Connell, extremely supportive, like taught me things that I didn't know about. Like my financial understanding had to really quickly like develop, like the strategy behind things had to really quickly develop. Like you talk about, your risk, your compliance, like HR, like they really, really helped me get a grasp of that stuff. But fundamentally, I was a biller, so I had to learn through trial and error because I was making mistakes with people really early on. And that was, when I got to the end of that journey with Robert Half, it was purely I needed to try something new because I'd been in that big corporate business, and I had made a load of mistakes. I probably would have continued to make mistakes in that type of environment, and I needed to become a well-rounded, manager, business leader, whatever you want to call it. You need to do things through trial and error, and then at some point you need to try new things as well.
Yeah. Do you think then, because I know it's like everyone always says that bidding managers, it's anyone who's done the job knows how difficult it is. I've done it. It's I found it not impossible, but just like a really great way to burn out. And
Yeah.
I know there's like one of my favorite sales trainers is Mike Weinberg. He's got this really good book called Sales Management Simplified, and he basically makes the case in that book that you just shouldn't do it. Like it just shouldn't be. Basically you should just, if you're going to have a manager, they should just manage.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't have a billing manager basically, because like you said, it's just such an incredibly difficult job, and you sort of end up doing potentially either the management slightly poorer or your billings get affected. Like what's your opinion on that, Len? Like do you feel like there is a place for it, or do you feel like it just you just need to make someone a manager and not have them involved in billing?
I think from a recruitment perspective, I think you need to have a billing manager. I think you need to have people that can not necessarily show people how to do it, but can lead from the front day in, day out. Like recruitment is a sales job, right? And if you're looking at your manager and they're not billing, or they're not hitting target, or they're not performing, it's quite uninspiring. So for me, I always wanted to have somebody to look at, be like, yeah, I'm gonna follow that person. I was fortunate. I've had some great managers over my career that I was able to look at them and be like, right, those individuals lead from the front day in, day out. Like they show people what to do. They take people on a journey through coaching, mentoring, managing, all of the above. Billing manager needs to be a really good player coach. And I think for the recruitment industry, they're really, really important.
Yeah, it is a tricky one.
Sorry, mate. I was going to say, if they want to do it, like if they want to do that job, where businesses get it wrong is they force a top performer into that environment, or into that role, and that's not right for them. It might be easier for the business to do that because the business is thinking, we'll just get everybody to copy you. But then going back to what I was saying earlier, that just doesn't work. So it's got to be, if that person wants to move into that role, then they should get the full support of that business, and away you go.
Yeah, I think you're totally right there, because that's the stereotypical move, isn't it? Like career move. You're a top biller, so you move up into a lead role, and then you move up into a management role, and then suddenly that's basically how you get managers who shouldn't be managers, isn't it? Because a lot of them don't even want to be a manager. Like I've seen it before, where some of the best billers I've worked with, excellent recruiters, and it's weird because they've got good people skills with the candidates and the clients, but they doesn't necessarily translate over to actually managing their team. Yeah. And then they sort of default back to, well, it worked for me, so it's going to work for you. And like you said, you've got to sort of like be a chameleon to a degree, haven't you?
Yeah, of course you do. It goes back to what I've just said, mate. It's that player coach type of scenario that you want to have.
Yeah.
But going back to what you said, it's got to be what they want to do. They can't be forced into it. There's nothing worse than you do that. I have definitely got that wrong, by the way. I've forced people previously into management roles that they were probably only taking the management role on because I was asking them to, and it wasn't right for them. It wasn't right. It wasn't right for the team that they were going to be managing. And going back to trial and error, learnt the hard way in some cases.
Yeah, you're obviously quite vocal on social media about like you said earlier, things you feel like should be changed in the recruitment industry, and I feel like this is something you could probably talk about for a while. So, where are you at, and like, what's your perspective on the recruitment industry? What do you feel like needs to be changed, and where do you feel like the industry needs to move over the next few years?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, look, I am pretty vocal on this. I think I had a DM yesterday from somebody saying my content was like Marmite. So look, I love the recruitment industry, by the way. Like, I think it's incredible. I love the fact that it's a career that you can get into with, let's call it as it is, without a degree. Like, you can go straight from school, and the fast track that you can have, I don't think you can get in many other industries. So from that point of view, I absolutely love it, and I wouldn't have been in it for as long as I have if I didn't think like that.
Mm.
However, there is a lot of stuff going on in the industry, and it's been happening for a long time, but it's probably more prevalent in the last couple of years, where new starters in the industry aren't getting trained properly. There's no formal learning and development plans for these people. There's no management training plans for people that are moving into management roles. There's no coaching, and in my experience, there's a lot of people out there that are just getting told to spam the database, send out mass mail shots, mass specs. How are you going to build a relationship or long-term effective partnership if that's all you are doing? The changes that need to happen it starts with the business leaders. Like, we have to be, implementing robust training, learning and development, management training. We have to be taking all of our people on a journey. It can't just be about making a quick fee, and moving on. The industry has become extremely transactional, and there are some amazing businesses out there that aren't operating that way. But there is still a high percentage of businesses that are doing that. So for me, we need to try and have a shift away from that, and it's got to be around driving relationships and partnerships, like giving first class customer service to our candidates and our clients. It's pretty simple, but for a whole host of reasons, it just isn't happening in the industry.
Yeah, recruitment has such a bad reputation, doesn't it? And like, when you go up to someone at like a barbecue and stuff and say I'm a recruiter, you can almost see people like cringe a little bit. I suppose it's like,
yeah,
similar to like car salesmen in the 80s, maybe something like that, or like stockbrokers, where people are sort of aware of the industry somewhat, but there's such a stigma around it because, like you said, so many people have been burned by recruiters, and it's almost like that slapdash approach, like you said. Like, there's what do you reckon can actually be done though? Because I know, like you said, training and stuff. In your eyes, what does that look like? Like, are you providing resources? Are you getting someone in to do it like regularly, or do you feel like there needs to be like something else stepping? Because like included, because one thing I've sort of played around with my head, which I've sort of been wondering about it actually since I started recruitment, because the barrier is so low, which is great. It's one of the main things about recruitment that I love. Like you said, you can have no degree and then be earning more than a doctor, which is mad.
Yeah.
But I wonder if like we'll get to a point where there's like a certification you have to do or something. Do you know what I mean? Like still fairly low barrier, but at least there's a standard to be held by. And I know there's some organizations out there that sort of do this kind of stuff, but I'm really curious
Yeah,
to get your thoughts on like where you think the industry can and should move in that regard.
yeah, absolutely. I think you've touched on it already. I think like you look on LinkedIn, and there are some superb people on there, from external training providers, from mentoring programs, from leadership development, for new starter recruiters. I think as as a business, you've got to be looking externally. Look, Forge Talent is, we are in our infancy, but as we grow, I already know there's going to be people that I'm going to be getting in touch with to say, look, can you help us with X, Y, Z? So clearly, you need to have your internal training there, but I think there's so many fantastic external people that businesses could be using, who have got fantastic recommendations, who've got fantastic backgrounds. It's like, why not use those people? Well, the only reason you wouldn't is because of cost, but it's an investment in your people.
Mm.
Going back to what you said, could there be an accreditation as such? I had an interesting chat with somebody last week around, could you regulate the industry? Now clearly that's not my background. I don't know if that could or couldn't be done, but it was quite an interesting topic just to sit there and think, okay, the barrier to entry is low to come into the industry. We want to keep it that way, but how do we make it professional, or even more professional? How do we make it about being a consultant or having a consultative approach? I'm sure there are steps and measures that could be put in place. I think there are lots of things out there, like your Net Promoter Score, your Glassdoor reviews, your LinkedIn recommendations. These are sort of things that if I was to be going to look for a role tomorrow within within the industry, I would be looking at those things before I even interview, to do my homework, do my research, and if I'm a candidate or client and I'm potentially going to be working with a recruiter, I'm going straight to the LinkedIn profile to see how many LinkedIn recommendations they've got, to see what people are saying about them. I'm going to Google reviews, Glassdoor reviews. I'm looking at all of these things to try and build a picture of the individual that I'm going to be working with. So there's some of the things that can be put in place. I don't think it's something that's going to be fixed over the next 12 months in any way, shape or form, because there are some businesses that have that mass spam approach and it works for them. Look, I get it, but that's not recruitment. That's recruitment administration. Like, that's spamming, that's working on portals, all that sort of stuff. That's not true recruitment, in my opinion.
Yeah. Do you follow Mitch Sullivan on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've followed him for a while. I think, I've read his book, and I think he mentioned in his book, like, the approach you were talking about, I think he calls it, like, candidate trading, not recruitment.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly what he calls it, yeah.
And it's that whole thing of, like, it's a funny one, recruitment, because it's sort of like, all the issues, obviously they come from agencies, but they also sort of come from client behavior and then to some degree candidate behavior as well, don't they? And they all sort of feed into themselves, like, oh yeah, well, the client fucks us around, so we're going to fuck them around. And the candidate's like, well, recruiters fucked me around before, so I'll fuck them around, which fucks the client around. And then we sort of get into this vicious cycle, and it's quite hard to sort of stop it. And then everyone's moaning about each other on LinkedIn, and it sort of drives this negative, toxic behavior. When the reality is, like, I know there's some bad recruiters out there, but there's some bad everything out there. There's some bad doctors out there, there's bad engineers out there, there's bad brickies out there that will screw you over and build you a conservatory that falls down in a few months, But recruitment gets this, like, in my opinion anyway, I think the reason recruitment's a bit unique in that sense is everyone has contact with a recruiter in some way, shape or form, unless they're self-employed. But they still might, they still won't say if they're self-employed if they're scaling, right? So it's like, it's sort of like the car salesman thing. Like, most people drive cars, and so therefore you're having to deal with these car salesmen, and there's obviously a lot of
Yeah.
them out there, low barrier to entry, good money, etc., etc. So same sort of story. You sort of touched on it there. This is something as well that's sort of come up in conversation with a few people I've been speaking to. And it is a tricky one, but if you were like outside of doing like Glassdoor research and that sort of thing, what like 3 or 4 questions if you were like a hiring company would you ask a recruiter to try and understand if they're actually good, if they're actually going to provide you a good service?
Oh, so if I'm a company and I'm asking, first thing I'm asking is like client testimonials. Like, can you provide me with client testimonials? If you do, great. I'm going to go one step further. Can you provide me with a client's mobile number or email address that you've worked with previously, that wouldn't mind having a conversation? The other thing I'm asking is, can you point to like the most recent search, like if it is exec search, or can you point to your most recent placement? Talk me through that. And then the other thing I'm asking is going back to what we said right at the start, like market trends, analysis, job titles, level of tenure, qualification, salary. I'm asking all of those things to get an understanding. Is this person actually a specialist in the world of technology recruitment or the world of accounting and finance recruitment? Or are they just out there trying to make a quick buck, quick transaction? Because do they know what they're talking about? And in my experience at the minute, there's not a lot of people out there that can showcase all of those things. There's also, again, not a huge amount of people that are actually doing face-to-face meetings with clients and candidates. So going back to that customer service, it's like if I'm the recruiter, I'm trying to get in front of that business or that individual as soon as, and I should be showcasing all of those things. Like, I shouldn't be getting asked those questions. I should be able to point to XYZ on why you should work with me.
Yeah, I feel like that is actually something that would really help the industry without changing the recruiters, because there obviously are loads of good recruiters out there, right? And if everyone only ever works with good recruiters, yeah, this is the thing. Like, they're good people as well, like genuinely good people. I would say most recruiters I know are good people, especially ones that have been in the industry a while. But hiring companies need to take some sort of the blame in terms of like their own bad experiences. In my opinion, I think there needs to be some sort of accountability there, because rather than just blaming all recruiters are scumbags, recruiters aren't doing a good job, etc. Okay, cool. How have you vetted them? Well, yeah. I think the reality is most of them don't. They get specced in a candidate. They go, well, that candidate looks good. Jump on a call with them. What's your terms? 15%? All right. And then suddenly they're on the PSL. And then they've got 8 agencies who then spam them CVs. And then because of the way that they treat the agencies, if you're up against 8 or 9 agencies, you can't. How can you possibly justify spending a lot of time on that job? It's dumb, right?
Yeah, it is. We're talking about the clients taking ownership again. Like, the recruiter at that point is got to be asking loads of questions. It's like, how long has the vacancy been out there? Like, how many agencies are you currently working with? What have you done up to this point? Like, is it on every job board under the sun? Like, you've got to be asking all these questions. Like, are there any internal candidates? Like, why are you working at 15%? Oh, it's because the other 7 or 8 agencies, they all agreed to that. Great, but you just told me the role's been live for 3 months and you've had 2 people offered and not accept. So, like, it goes back to, like, there's got to be questioning from the client on why they should use the recruiter, but then the recruiter is going to be pushing back on the client and going through the motions on this sort of stuff to really get into the nitty gritty. And then a good recruiter is then going to lay out what the non-negotiables are from their side. It's like, right, this is what the terms are. This is the timeline of events. This is what the process is going to look like. Does all that sound great? Well, of course you're going to want to work with that person rather than someone who's going to spec you somebody who might not actually be a real candidate. Like, let's be honest. That shady stuff does still go on to get your foot in the door. So there's got to be ownership. There's got to be ownership on everyone, right? There's got to be ownership on candidates as well, right? They've got to know who they're working with, and vice versa. So, but it's getting into the detail.
Yeah, it's like having that structure and that process as well, which obviously comes back to like L&D and getting those foundation blocks in the first place, so people aren't just constantly winging things, right? And on that note, I know you've mentioned this before, but you're a big fan of cold calling, right? You actually love it. You're one of the rare people that actually loves it.
I absolutely love cold calling. I do. I really enjoy it. Look, Riz, Adam, and Joe that I'm working with at Forge, they absolutely love it as well. I love picking up the phone to somebody who has absolutely no idea who I am, and I've got a very short amount of time to extend that conversation. I get like a weird kick out of that. Like I get a really weird buzz out of that. And then when it starts to develop, it's like, right, brilliant. Now I've got you engaged. Now we're actually talking. Can I come and meet you for a coffee? And it's like, brilliant. Like that's where a relationship starts to build. Can I jump on a Teams? That's where that relationship starts to develop. You can't do those things on email. And if you can, please, somebody give me a call. Like my mobile number's on LinkedIn, and tell me how you can do that via email. It's the cold call element is how you start the relationship, but it's how you learn about people. It's how you learn about new businesses. Gone off on a tangent there, mate. But yeah, I love cold calling.
No, it's really interesting because it's sort of like the flavor of the month at the moment. And though I am absolutely a big fan of like an omni-channel approach, I personally feel like you should try and do everything to a high degree, because you know different people like being communicated with differently, right? However, cold calling is without a doubt, when done right, and that's the key thing, because so many people are so awful at it, but when done correctly, is the quickest way you can speak to someone, build a relationship with them, and get in front of them to then further explain your services. So for someone who's, you know, obviously had mass success with doing it, first thing I want to ask you, because there'll be so many people listening to this who'll be dealing with this, how do you get over cold call anxiety?
Good question. Look, I just quickly rolling back. Cold calling was something I had always done earlier on in my career. From 2017, when I relocated to Manchester and my role essentially became a non-billing role, I hadn't done a huge amount of it. And I would do it now and again to help people, help the team. Launching Forge Talent, it was like, I'm going to have to cold call again. And this has been a while. Like this has been a minute. So I got that anxiety as well. Very quickly, I had to give my head a wobble and get over myself, because if I've got 3 guys that I'm working with that like love cold calling, like are really quickly going to bill, and I founded this business and I'm not doing it myself, like something's wrong. So I had to just jump in with both feet. But how do you get over it? How I think it's a really good question, mate. It's all in the preparation. Now, I know some people, you know, in the market believe that you shouldn't do any prep before you cold call. Just jump straight in. Personally, my opinion, I think you need a bit of prep. Like, you need to know who you're calling. You need to know why you're calling them. You need to know if they're a decision maker. So I still to this day, like the night before, 45 minutes, I plan who I'm calling the next day. And I've looked, it's like, are they CFO, FD, FC, within a type of business that I want to work with? And I'll have a quick look at the LinkedIn profile, have a look at the website, make sure I know what the business does. So that when I jump into my calls in the morning, it's I'm not like a deer in the headlight type of stuff. So there's that. think the other thing you've got to think about is what's the worst that's going to happen, right? They're going to hang up on you. Might tell you to bugger off. Okay. You might never speak to that person again. Okay. So jump in. And I think you can also have a bit of a laugh with it, with your introduction, right? My introduction is no different to those people that talk about it on LinkedIn. I literally jump in, say who I am, tell them it's a cold call, and say, look, if you want to hang up, just go for it. And as soon as there's a little bit of an awkward silence, I just jump straight back in. And sometimes they'll laugh. Sometimes they'll just say, look, it's not for me. But most people give you the time of day. It's not how it was like 10, 11 years ago. Like 10, 11 years ago, people were really rude. Like they would tell you to do one and hang up. Whereas now I think people understand more what a recruiter can offer, what a recruiter can do for you if it's relevant. So more often than not, they give you the time of day. But look, I had that anxiety like day one, and I was like, got a cold call again. Just jump in with both feet, have some fun with it.
So you mentioned there, because one of the most popular like openings now is like a pattern interrupt, right? So it's like a permission-based opening. Lots of people in tech sales and a lot of sales trainers use the whole, this is actually a sales call. Do you want to hang up now? Let me steal 30 seconds. Do you do that on every call then?
Yeah. So I'm building relationships with people, right? So like not 24, not every single call that I'm doing. I was going to say 24 hours in a day. I do not work 24 hours a day, right? That's a load of rubbish. But so there's parts of my day now where it's look, I'm delivering for clients. So these are people that I'm starting to build relationships with. So, but yeah, the ones that are genuine, proper cold call, literally, it's Max Learmonth here from Forge Talent. This is what we do. Look, this is a cold call. Feel free to hang up. Since we launched in June, I've not had many people hang up. So it's people are genuinely more polite than they used to be. So that just works for me. Riz, Adam, and Joe, they're doing really similar, and it's working for them as well.
Yes, I've got a theory around this because I've been doing cold calling since like when I start 2011. Cold call center for Southern Electric, and I was selling electrical wiring insurance. £5 per sale, threading stuff, and it was like I didn't know how to cold call at the time, but I feel like cold calling and sales generally has evolved quite a lot over the last like 12 years or so, and I personally think, I don't know what you think of this, but I personally think with the evolution of the internet, with the evolution of social media and transparency generally, right? Because everyone's accessible now, and you can also call people out on their bullshit quite easily as well. You sort of have to be a bit careful in how you present yourself, because you can build your reputation up on social media, but someone can tear you down very easily as well if you were to be a bit of a knob. Whereas in the 80s and 90s, think of the Wolf of Wall Street, like you could get away with stuff like that and nobody would find out again. And people are just looking for everyone's busier than ever, right? Everyone's getting more emails than ever. I saw a screenshot the other day of I think it was this morning or yesterday. Someone was talking about cold calling, the benefits of cold calling, and then emailing. And obviously emailing is the popular thing at the moment, email sequences and all that. They sent a screenshot of their inbox, and it was just this is what you're competing with. And they had 18 emails that morning. Whereas people just want you to get to the point now, don't you think? It's that attention span thing and the authenticity thing.
Well, they want to know, they want to really quickly know, is this person credible? Can what they're selling, can it actually solve a problem? Is it a solution? Is it relevant? That's what we want to know. that doesn't surprise me. I would have thought that that number would have been even higher of that screenshot that you got, or that you got sent, because everybody is into email sequencing. It's great. I get it. Totally understand. But a lot of people hide behind it. They hide behind email. Whereas that person that got that screenshot, it's like, if you've picked up the phone to that person, you're going to be the differentiator. You're going to be the different person there. So probably going to give you the time of day, because they're certainly not going to reply to 18 emails.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key things that people need to take away, is that you are actually a differentiator by cold calling, which sounds mad, especially for people who've been doing sales for a while.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is then? Because I know you've got you've obviously got a large network within recruitment. From what I'm hearing is that a lot of new recruiters who sort of joined during COVID, like the last 2-3 years, you see it a lot on social media. People talking about how the new recruiters, Gen Z recruiters, if you want to call them that, is like they don't want to pick up the phone, and the actual volume of cold calls people are getting now is smaller. Are you seeing that yourself as well? Like,
I've certainly heard that previously. I think COVID did have a massive impact on it. If we're going to be open and transparent here, the year we came out of COVID, everybody got a warm shower with their billings. Everybody was everybody was hiring businesses. Everybody could make a placement. Everybody could mass spam. Salaries were overinflated, so people's billings were overinflated. Like, year out of COVID, like, it was pretty easy. Like, if we're going to be honest, and somebody who would bill 180k normally in a year was probably billing 250, 260. So it gave people a warm shower, and they were able to do it via email. I also think it goes back to my earlier point around new recruiters coming in. Where's that player coach? Like, where's that leadership that are on the tools, that are showing them how to do it? And where's the training program? Where's the L&D? Like, all that good stuff. But where are the people that are taking them on that journey to show them what a good call looks like, to show them what a bad call looks like? Are they there? Question mark. I don't know. I'm not in other businesses. But yeah, I think it's a combination of that, so that now, when markets have been tighter, like within technology, within sales, within marketing, within HR, those markets have suffered over the last sort of 12 months. Those people then don't know how to feed themselves. They've been able to get away with sending out mass mail shots and emails for a period of time, and they're not even sure how to do the research anymore on utilizing the different technology tools to see who is hiring. They're not picking up the phone to candidates to identify information. They're not spotting trends, analysis, just market intel, because it's been done via email. So there's now a reluctance to get on the phone, but it comes back to, well, they've not been shown how to do
it. Yeah, I think this happens quite a lot, isn't it? It's the whole, like, hunter farmer thing, where sometimes you get farmers in a hunting job, i.e. trying to win new business, when really they should just be sort of account managers. It's just either they don't know how to do it or they don't want to do it. Do you guys, are you 360 then, you guys, or do you have the 180 model?
All 360.
What do you think of the 180 model then?
I think it works for different businesses. Clearly, like, it works for some of the larger corporate businesses. It works where you have got that business development manager who's just out there winning business, and that's all they want to do, and then you've got a delivery model behind it. I totally understand why people would have that. Former place I worked at, we tried it on a number of large projects. So there was myself and a couple of other people that were out there winning large projects to deliver on predominantly technology, and we built a delivery team. it didn't work for us. But I think that's because honestly, I wasn't that bought into it from day one. So that more than likely fed through. And it just didn't work out. It's whereas if myself and the other people were picking up these projects, we should have just delivered on it, rather than think we're just going to go out there and win projects. We probably got delusions of grandeur. We'll go out and we'll just win big projects, and we've got this delivery team who will just deliver on it. Yeah, pay us your money up front, and we'll have people that just deliver on it. It didn't work for me. That's not to say I would never be open to it again in the future, but I personally prefer working with hunter-gatherers. That 360 model. It's sort of how I was brought into recruitment and how I was raised. We will continue to do that.
Yeah, I mean, 360, in my opinion, and you might disagree with me, but I think 360 recruiters are actually quite rare. Like real 360 recruiters, good 360 recruiters. And it's quite hard to identify who's going to do well in that 360 role. Like, do you have, obviously you've done a lot of recruitment and grown teams. Do you have any particular way or any tips for people trying to grow a team of how to identify if someone's actually going to be up for that 360 role, if they're going to be able to manage the madness of account management, sourcing, and business development at the same time?
I think it goes back to data analysis, trends, ratios, doesn't it? Like if we really look at it, I think first and foremost that person's going to be trained how to do it. They've got to have a player coach. They've got to have somebody that's driving them or driving with them, and helping them go through each phase of the recruitment cycle. Like that's got to be paramount. But once you've got to give people time, right? So, but once you get to a point where they've been in the business 6 months, you've got to be looking at how many net new clients are they meeting per month? How many candidate registrations are they doing per month? How many job orders, like proper job orders, are they producing each month? And what is that fill ratio then look like, or not look like? And then I suppose it's going back to understanding what that person's motivations are. Like, is this actually what they want to do? Like, do they enjoy it? Because if they enjoy it, they want to do it, they've got a player coach, they're doing all of the right things, they're displaying all the right behaviours, like the metrics are there, it'll come good. They just need to be given time. But if those things aren't there and they're not enjoying it, well then, that manager or that leader's got to make a decision. And it's probably the right decision for that person. And it might be that person needs to go into a 180 role. Might be that person needs to go into an internal talent acquisition role. You've hired that person for a reason. You've seen something in that person. Give them the best opportunity. Like, give them the best chance of success. But if you're just bringing somebody in, it's like, right, there's a database and there's a phone, and we expect you to do X amount of calls, which again is bullshit, by the way. But they're going to fail. But that's on you as a management team or you as a leader. Like, that's on you. You got that completely wrong. Like, you didn't give the person, that individual, the tools to be successful.
Yeah, I had an interesting chat with Alex Elliott.
Yeah,
and he was talking
the guy's
about
a legend.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's a good guy. He was talking about, like, he thinks you have to be smart to be a recruiter. Like, there has to be some sort of element of intelligence there. Do you think, like, I don't know what your thoughts are that, like, do you think you have to be quite intelligent to be a recruiter, or at least intelligent in a certain way? Maybe it's emotional intelligence, not necessarily academic. Or can you just be like a workhorse?
There's definitely, Luke. Alex Elliott is a legend. Like, been there, done it, got the t-shirt, doing it again. I think there's probably an element to it. Like, you clearly you need to have some form of intelligence, like you do for every job, and it doesn't matter what it is. But I think with recruitment, your market will dictate, I think, that level of intelligence. Like what are you going to go into? Like what type of recruitment is it that you're going into? You definitely need that level of emotional intelligence, like absolutely. Like self-awareness is massive in recruitment. Going back to what we said earlier, it's like that barrier to entry is really low in recruitment, and that is a major positive. But that doesn't mean you just hire anybody like off the street. Like that person's still going to go through an interview process. Like you're still going to try and understand that person's motivations. Like you're still going to try and push them on their experiences, their career. So, you're not just taking anybody off the street. That would just be madness. So I think there does need to be of course there is. There needs to be a form of intelligence, because you're spinning a lot of plates, especially in 360. You've got your candidate piece, your client piece, you've got your negotiation piece, you've got to be able to run a process, you've got to be able to negotiate fees. There does need to be an element of intelligence. Of course there does.
Yeah, and there's definitely some agencies, by the way, who do take any person off the street. I'm aware of those. It's mad, actually. Honestly, I actually know. I know someone who worked at one. I won't mention any names, but it was hilarious because basically their tagline was that they hire really like analytical people. Like they have like this really stringent process. But if you look at who they were hiring, they would hire 10 people. And I know there's so many agencies do this. But they hire like 10 or 15 people at the go with the plan to sack 10 of them. And maybe 3 will leave and then 2 might stay. And these, and not saying that you, like I said, you have to come from an academic background or whatever. But it was like there was no strategy there. Like we're talking and a complete like eclectic mix of bunch of people, like delivery drivers, checkout staff. Just think that the type of jobs you do when you're trying to get your way through college or something or post school. It is funny how some recruiters hire, but with regards to like especially with 360 roles. One thing I really struggled with earlier in my sales career, not even in recruitment, I sort of was getting a grasp on it by the time I started in recruitment in 2015. But one thing I didn't realize, to be a good salesperson, to be a good recruiter, is your ability to like be productive, be organized, and plan your day or plan your week or whatever, and just generally be disciplined around what you're doing. What's your process at the moment? Like, how do you plan your day? How do you plan your week? How do you stay productive and disciplined?
Yeah, I think the key word that you just mentioned, mate, is disciplined. Like that's absolutely massive. In terms of like my process and structure, I've reverted back to what I did sort of back in 2012 when I've started. So it's a day plan. Clearly, it's a little bit more advanced than that now. It's not just written in a pad of who am I calling, but my day's structured. So is Ray's, Adams, and Joe's. So we all sort of follow the same suit. So we aim to speak to candidates, but before 9 o'clock. We then go into sort of from 9 till 11:30, 12. It's a business development strategy, which is planned, like I said earlier. Like we know who we're calling and why, and that's a mix of cold calling. That's a mix of clients that we're currently working with. That's a mix of people that people that have got adverts and all that sort of good stuff. So it's structured, and then the afternoon is, well, what does your business need? It's like, do you need to deliver on X, Y, Z? Like, what live roles have you got? Do you need to deliver on that? So, is it sourcing? Is it shortlisting? Is it organising interviews? Is it candidate registrations? Because everything for us, it's we're either meeting our candidates face to face, or it's over Teams. before they're being put forward. And then the other thing is face-to-face client meetings and Teams client meetings. So our afternoons are teed up so that we're meeting candidates, we're delivering for clients, or we're meeting clients. Like that's how our days are structured. Might seem a little regimented, but works for us. And yeah, we'll continue to do that.
And do you use like any sort of I know there's like I think it's called the Eisenhower matrix. You know, you've got the important but urgent, urgent not important, that sort of thing. Do you have like a maybe let's just talk about how you organize things generally. Like let's talk about outside of work then. Like do you have that in your mind? Do you use like lists, or do you use like any sort of like particular technique, or is it just spending the time planning it?
Outside of work, mate, Danielle, my wife, she does everything. So outside of work, things are taken care of from Danielle and Delilah, my little one. So outside of work, I don't really need to think. But from an inside of work, yeah, going back to what you've just said, I'll have my to-do list of like super urgent, can take a bit of time doing. So that'll be the first part of the plan. Like that's on the day plan. And it's like I have to get that done. Subject to what the urgency is, but I've got to get that done at some point throughout the day. And then the rest of it is just how I said, mate. It's that structured, disciplined focus. So because I know if I do that, and if I execute that day plan, well, come the end of the day when me and the guys are jumping on a Teams call, it's like I can confidently say, well, this is what I've done today. This is what's been executed, and we share each day. We share the wins of the day, and we talk through it. We also share the challenges of the day because it's a startup, so of course there's going to be loads. But it's really tough to be able to sit there at the end of the day. If you've been winging it all day, just makes it 10 times harder for yourself.
Yeah, for sure. That's something. Generally, that's something that was. I always get flashbacks whenever I talk about it. It gives me anxiety, to be honest. But my sales director came in one day. I was working as a field sales exec, selling like waste management services. It was my first like proper suit and tie company car job. Thought I'd made it.
Yeah,
I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. Like, didn't know how to write a to-do list. And I remember my sales director. He was like, "What's your plan for the week then?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" I just had no concept of organization, and he had to show me how to do a to-do list, and I knew at that moment I was going to get fired. So it's a topic close to my heart. But with discipline as well, right? Is that something that you were like going back to your sporting days? Is that something that you just had going into the industry, or did you have to develop it?
I think the discipline, like going back to sport, it was highly disciplined. Like everything, to do with rugby and athletics, which were what I was heavily involved in. Like everything had structure, whether it was training, team meetings, analysis. Come game day when you were racing, and I was in that environment for a long time. A lot of it came from I suppose my brothers and my dad as well. We were all sort of that way, that because of how heavily involved we all were in sport, there was a lot of structure and there's a lot of discipline. Then get into recruitment, and it's like, right, I'm looking at the top performers. I remember looking at like week 2, and I'm looking at the UK top performer and looking at the amount of money they're billing per week. It's like, right, I need to speak to that guy. I need to understand how he's doing that. And I did, like, and everything he did was disciplined. It was super structure, and he was a top performer. He was billing a hell of a lot of money, and everything was to do with structure. I also had a fantastic manager when I first started. A guy called Matt Tabraham. He was awesome. Taught me a hell of a lot, and he was a top performer. one of those proper billing managers. Like, the guy couldn't do enough for you, but he was delivering for his candidates and clients every single day. Everything he did was structure and discipline. So you then come from that sport background where it's structure, discipline, move into recruitment. It's like, right, my manager's like that. The top performer in the UK, and he was one of the top performers in the world for half. Well, he's doing it like that. And you combine it with being highly competitive, which I still am. It just meshed together really nicely.
Yeah, no, awesome, mate, awesome. One thing you mentioned as well was the sharing of the challenges, like every day, and sharings of the wins. That's quite interesting, because I don't think a lot of people do that. I think they sort of skim over that. And like, how have you found that helps the team then? Is it just sort of like normalizing making mistakes, makes people feel more part of a team? Or
yeah, I think the combination of all of that. I think just something, mate. There's no such thing as a mistake, right? There's a learning opportunity, and if you don't reflect on something that's been challenging in a day or in a week, how can you then change that behaviour? How can you then mitigate the impact next time round? So I think it's been a couple of things. It's the reason we do it is for that togetherness, that camaraderie. It's like we celebrate the little wins, and the little win could be that you did X amount of cold calls and you booked a client meeting with somebody is going to be hiring. So it could be something as small as that. I think the challenges piece is like, didn't get through it anyone today, or I booked in client meeting, all confirmed, got ghosted. Candidate didn't turn up for interview, even though like they were committed, they were prepped, like all that good stuff. So it's just normalizing this type of stuff. But then when I sit down with the guys at the end of the week and we do it individually, like we talk through. It's like, right, well, XYZ happened. What can we learn from it? What's the biggest learn for the week? And we talk through it. And I talk through my biggest challenges, like my biggest learning opportunities, or my biggest fuck ups, right? Because we're all human, like we have them. So it's normalizing, like it's okay, like you're gonna make a mistake, and just talking through it. And I think we're a tight knit group. I've worked with Riz now for nearly 10 years. I think Adam is 5-6 years we've worked together. Joe's been like a year and a half, but we're tight knit because we talk about that type of stuff.
Yeah, mate, I think it's awesome. I think it's really good, and I think it's actually something that is really key with creating that positive culture, because I think when people go into recruitment, a lot of them go into these sort of like boiler room mentalities where they get beasted, and any mistake they're pounced on. And then you also get to that point, don't you, where you're like, you have a complete fear of failure, and you don't. It's funny because when you try and focus on not making mistakes, sometimes that's when you make the most mistakes, right? Because you sort of get like deer in the headlights.
Yeah, like of course it is. Like it's that you go back to sport. Like if you're super anxious about something, like put it into rugby. It's like, right, you're making a play, and it's like, don't drop the ball, don't drop the ball, don't drop the ball, don't drop the ball. What's going to happen? You're going to drop the ball, right? Because you have that fear of failure. You already have that nervous energy and anxiety. And I think a lot of businesses, well, I can only comment on 2 previous businesses, but other businesses, like when they're doing the kickoff or the wrap up or stand up or whatever you want to call it, it's all about how many calls you're gonna do today, how many specs are you going to send out a day. It's all volume driven. Nobody learns from that. They either hit the target or they don't. And a good day in those types of environments is, did I get my 500 mass spam specs sent out? Yes, I did.
Yeah.
That's what I deem a good day. It's like, that's not a good day. Like, so, but they're not getting an opportunity to then talk about, I suppose, the crap, talk about the small wins. in an open forum. So like you get that sort of nervous energy and that anxiety that might be happening in people's like weekly catch ups and stuff. But how good would it be to talk about it every day and be in an environment where you can talk about it every day?
And openly in front of other people, right? Because like you said, if it's going on in a one-on-one, that's great. But if everyone, if no one's seeing that apart from the two people in that conversation, then it's not really going to affect the culture, is it? And it's, I mean, how great is it being in an environment in any industry, in sport, in business, whatever, where, you don't fear making a mistake, and that way you're sort of allowing people to try new things. You're allowing people to take creative risks and innovate and actually try and push outside their comfort zone. Whereas if you punish people for making a mistake, and we are, like you said, this is the other thing as well. I think people look at people like, successful people like you, or they're sort of online influencers they follow online. Like, there's quite a few good sales trainers, cold calling experts on LinkedIn that I follow, and you sort of fall into that trap of just thinking that everything they do is amazing, based on their content or whatever.
Yeah.
And the reality is, no, they are making constant mistakes as well, but it's just about understanding that that's part of being human and part of the learning process. Because
there's like social media glamorizes all things that are great and showcases all things that are great, but it doesn't show you, like, there's a lot of crap that goes on in the industry as well, and there's lots of crap in every industry that goes on, and social media doesn't always show that. So it's about creating that environment where it's all right to talk about the challenges, because if you talk about the challenges, you mitigate the impact next time, and you get that 1% better every day. That's what I believe anyway. I know everybody's different, and everybody people will probably listen to this and think, God, Max is talking a load of crap, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, mate. Just to finish this off, mate, I think it would just be interesting to get your point of view of where the future of recruitment is going. With all the stuff that gets talked about around AI, ChatGPT, and where that's all going, and maybe even like how we work and how we operate with our clients. There's obviously, when was it? I think it was last year, like 4-day, or earlier this year even, like 4-day work weeks, and sort of restructuring of not just recruitment but how people work generally. Where do you feel like recruitment's going over the next like 5 years or so?
Loads to unpack there, mate. Loads to unpack there. I think in terms of AI and chat GBT, I think I've been quite vocal, shock, in my opinion, on that on LinkedIn. Has its place. I can totally understand why recruiters, why candidates, why clients would use it for CVs being written, job adverts, for potentially even being part of a process. Totally get it. You will never get away from the fact that recruitment is a sales and a consultative role, right? Or industry. You'll never get away from the fact that it's an industry driven by relationships, driven by partnerships. Some of my clients from when I was back in Edinburgh are now great friends. You're going to really struggle to do that if you're not picking up the phone, you're not jumping on Teams, you're not meeting these people face to face and actually building relationships. I think that AI and ChatGPT will actually make the industry more transactional, which is what I totally want to stay away from, and what Forge Talent wants to totally stay away from. However, I also think it creates a unique opportunity for those businesses, Forge Talent being one of them, that want to drive relationships, want to drive partnerships, and want to do things face-to-face, Teams, phone. Because if clients and candidates, are getting spammed by AI, ChatGPT, which they are. I think while we've been on this call, I've had a number of DMs in my LinkedIn that all look like that, because you can spot it a mile off. It creates an opportunity for businesses out there that aren't going to use it or aren't going to use it to the extent that some other businesses will. And there's been there's been a lot of other recruitment leaders and business owners that have been quite vocal about this topic as well, that I think agree with me on this. So yeah, that's where I think it's going in terms of AI and chat GBT.
Are you optimistic about the future of recruitment?
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't have set a business up in June if I wasn't. I've got a really ambitious plan over the next 10 years of where I want to take this business, and I wouldn't have done that if I wasn't really serious about it, and if I was nervous about what the future looked like. I certainly wouldn't have asked Ray's Adam and Joe to come with me, because they've got their mortgages, they've got their bills to pay, and to a degree I'm responsible for that. So I wouldn't have asked them to come on the journey with me if that was a doubt in my mind. I think there's going to be a lot of people get found out over the next 12, 18 months. I think it's already started to happen. There are lots of cowboys and cowgirls in the industry who do want to be just transactional. I think those people will get found out. I think I said it to you right at the start. I think we're in a market where accountancy and finance, in a good economy, everybody needs an accountant, and in a struggling economy, everybody needs an accountant. I think there are industries that have been really hit over the last 12 months, but you can start to see like things are starting to change again. Things are starting to become more positive in those markets and those industries. People are starting to become quite vocal about it. So yeah, I'm really positive, optimistic about what the future is going to look like for the recruitment industry. There's going to be lots of challenges along the way. There's going to be lots of industry changes. There's going to be things that happen that you've got to roll with. You've got to be agile. You've got to pivot. You've got to move. But if you can do that, you'll be really, really successful. But everything we spoke about sort of on here, mate, it goes back to the business owners, the leadership, anybody that we are bringing into this industry. Give them the best tools possible to be successful. Give them the best start to facilitate and help them have a great career in recruitment, because it's a bloody awesome industry when you get it right.
Yeah. No, mate, totally agree. Well, what a nice note to end on. Thanks so much for coming on, mate. Really appreciate it. If people want to connect with you or work with you, where do they need to go?
Mate, just come straight to my LinkedIn page. Max Learmonth. Hit me up. We can have a chat. Always here to help any candidates, clients, or even recruiters that want to have a chat about the industry. So please feel free to drop me a message. Great to be on, Dave. Thanks for inviting me on, mate.